Hi, and welcome to Classical Stuff You Should Know, a podcast about the ancient world, classical things, education, old books, philosophy, ideas.
Who would be dumb enough to say ideas in the intro?
And, you know, a giant umbrella so we can talk about whatever we want.
Yes.
Unless it's modern. In
Unless
which case,
it's modern,
we'll
then
probably do it anyway.
We'll still do it.
Yeah.
But we'll get people, I don't know, will email us about it.
I feel like people aren't too bothered by it. Like your what's
One
the one
Flew
you-
Over the Cuckoo's
One Flew Over the
Nest.
Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah,
Like,
it went over okay.
Yeah, the only person who was bothered by it was me.
It's not classical.
My name is Graham Donaldson, and I am joined by
Hello?
my friends.
Hello?
So it was a late night last
Donaldson,
night,
yeah, why were you up
fellas.
so late last night?
So it's South by Southwest here in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And Mrs. Donaldson and I decided we were going to go to this, just sort of this EDM show. I know.
As one does.
As one does. But it's cool. It was like this.
Oh, yeah?
It was this weird experimental, it was like on the east side in this like warehouse.
Okay.
And it was like $5 at the door, and it was real tiny. And it was just this, it was like experimental EDM. So it was just the weirdest thing you've ever heard ever.
Were
Like
you
the weird
invited to
music.
this? Did you
No,
choose?
so the thing is, it's South by, so it's happening, but it happens every month in Austin.
Oh, okay.
So it's been going on for 15 years. There's this radio show that on our local UT college radio station, KUTX, love you KUTX. And they do I think it's a Saturday night EDM like thing.
Okay.
And it's kind of like weird music and whatnot, but my wife loves it.
Does it actually have a beat, or is it?
Oh yeah, the stuff that's on the radio is awesome.
No. Oh, I thought I was talking about the show, but
Oh yeah. It actually yes. And so we were like, oh cool. Well, this has been going on, and so the shtick is whoever's performing has to perform all original stuff. It's not mixing, so you
Okay.
can't just like mix other people's things. It has to be beats that you have handcrafted and made. Some of them were making them right there on stage. Some of them were just like hit and play and pretended to do stuff. So that's that's a kind of a cool thing, but it was just the weirdest mix of music you've ever heard in your life. Just like, anyway.
Will you go back?
They do it every month.
Yeah.
If we go back, we probably will. If we go back, we would do a little more research on like who they had got to perform.
Yeah.
Because that would make a difference. The reason we went was because it was one of the members of Broken Social Scene.
Really?
Yeah, this is his first live mix ever.
oh, crazy.
And it was a drummer for Broken Social Scene. And so we're like, that's cool. Broken Social Scene is a Canadian, like, indie rock conglomerate. I don't know what you want to call it.
Yeah.
They're like this, anyway, Google them.
I mean, they've been around for a long time.
They've been around for a
They're
long
just-
time, and they're not, we to call them a band, because they're just like, there's like an umbrella that all these different musicians come in and play for every now and then. Anyway, whatever. He was doing it, and so we went to go see him, and he was great. It was fun, but it was super late, so that's why I'm having trouble talking in this introduction to AJ's podcast. But I'm joined by, geez Louise, AJ Hannenberg.
That's me.
And Thomas Fletcher Magby.
Hi.
And we are on episode number 3 of the Genghis concerts, the unicorn itself.
We are indeed. And before we tackle that, we have something to
You wanna go through this?
solve.
Yeah, okay.
I really do.
We have to do this we're doing this on a main episode.
Do you want to do it on a side
No, we can
episode?
do whatever. Maybe this is just give people a hint, a taste
what we
of what a Patreon is.
No, let's do it on it. Let's
Okay.
wait. Let's wait for in between.
Okay.
Do you want to share what the opinion was that Graham shared?
It's not an opinion. It was just
The wild thing
The wild thing
assertion
that
Graham
I
just-
have decided that
Jeez
we need to discuss on the
Yeah.
podcast is we're fighting over the thermostat, and I said to set it to 70. He's like, I set it to 70 on cool, and I was like, no, can you set it to 70 on heat? And he said they're the same thing, cool, heat, 70 degrees.
That's wild. Can you believe that?
Crazy.
I cannot believe that.
Yeah.
That'll be for the in-between, I guess.
Louise.
Okay.
there are 2 different 70s. All right, we're going to talk about this.
Awesome. Cool. This is great. This is the word.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. What? Yeah. What were you actually going to talk about today? Is this This is part 3?
This is part 3. Well, really part 2. First episode was kind of an introduction.
Right.
Second episode was the youth of Temujin, who would later become Genghis Khan. He becomes Genghis Khan today. He actually becomes Genghis Khan. I feel like I'm mispronouncing it too. It might be Genghis Khan, but I'm gonna go with Genghis because that's what everybody says.
Right.
So Genghis Khan, and I this section is tough because we've moved out of sort of the lore of Genghis Khan and his background and his upbringing into here's a whole bunch of battles involving really sprawling people groups and a whole bunch of names. Some people come in once, get murdered, and then leave. It's kind of like the Iliad, right? Where if we were Mongolian, we might recognize the name, we might recognize the background, but since I'm not, I don't recognize much of any of it.
Right.
So it's getting to the point where I feel a little bit unequal to the task just because there's so many moving parts and so many different people groups. So I read it a couple times, and I'm hoping that I can kind of paint it as the narrative of a relationship between Genghis Khan and two of his Onda, which essentially means brothers.
Oh, it's like this podcast.
Yeah.
Wow.
If I had to choose some Onda,
There you go.
You
That
guys
makes-
would be
That makes you
Onda.
Genghis Khan in this one?
Huh?
That makes you Genghis Khan?
No. It's just
Okay.
an Onda is sort of like a brotherhood that is established. And I will even give you the quote about how they used to view an Onda.
Yep.
So that's what I'm going to try to do. Just note that if you are deciding to go read this for yourself, it doesn't hang on to that narrative very much. And as we go through it, I'll be noting some battles. I'll try to keep all of the boring stuff out of there and focus on the good fun stuff. Tell a few short stories that sort of pop up for fun. Read a few fun quotes, and then we'll get there. I don't think we're going to get to the end of the narrative of like the rise and fall of these two relationships, but they do eventually fall sort of when Genghis takes control of all of Mongolia. Spoilers. So that's what we're doing.
Let's do it.
Crazy.
Sounds
Okay.
awesome.
I wish
Need a
it
recap.
was the story of romance. It's not
Oh.
the story of romance. Women are not exactly holding a high position typically, except for, weirdly, Genghis's mom.
Oh.
So recap, Genghis has been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I mean, there's not much to recap. He's got a mom named Oalun, who's really cool. And he's got a wife named Bort. And he has made some friends and he has escaped some tight scrapes. I will hit small pieces of review as we go along, just like the people groups might pop up and some names might pop up that are coming back from last episode. But what you need to know is that Genghis Khan has grown into a fiery-faced young individual. He is great at war. He's incredibly bold. He loves the women. And he is, as far as I can tell, faithful to his wife. And by faithful, I mean he hasn't murdered her yet. And he
Low
hasn't
bar.
disowned
Okay,
her.
cool.
Right? She's
Yeah.
still around, and he
Right.
still considers her a wife.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't he
So
like
that's
kill some of his brothers last time?
What's up?
Didn't he kill some of his brothers last time?
Yep.
Yeah.
Early on, he killed, half brothers.
Okay.
So they were brothers by another father.
Yeah.
And both were born to No, it was same father, different mom? Different mom.
Okay.
Same dad, different mom, and he didn't like that his brother was stealing his fish.
That'll do
So
it.
if you're interested, you can go back and listen to our previous episodes and hear all about the murdering of brothers and the stealing of fish. And then in this one, we are jumping in with a commander who is growing into the king that he will eventually become, right? It's as his empire expands, he is trying to unify all of Mongolia. He hasn't struck outside of Mongolia yet. We won't get there today, but he will eventually. Okay, I've entitled today The Story of Jamuka, who helped against the Merkit, and Ongkhan and the Uniting of Mongolia.
Are these the Ondas?
Yes, Jamuka and Ongkhan are Ondas. So let's start with the friendship and quarrel of Temujin and Jamuka. Jamuka and Temujin used to camp together, and they decided to renew their Onda. An Onda is a close relationship or brotherhood. We are brothers. They first established their Onda when Temujin was 11. Jamuka gave him a knucklebone from a roe deer, and Temujin gave back a copper-weighted knucklebone, and they were brothers, right? That was it. Do the knucklebones, and apparently I had to look it up, but knucklebones is a game you can play, I guess. So, and when you put copper in it, it makes it a little more robust and sturdy, and it won't fall apart quite as easy. I don't know what the game is. You roll the knucklebone, and if it points up, you win. I have no idea
made
what it
that
is.
up, yeah.
It's probably like Pogs somehow.
That forges a brotherhood.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Pogs do.
Oh, and
Yeah.
any just sort of like throwing game.
Throwing game, and especially
yeah.
if you trade slammers,
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're fast friends. And
Yeah.
so again, in the spring, they did it again. They were doing archery with some wooden bows, and Jamuka glued together 2 horns from a 2-year-old calf, drilled some holes in them, and gave the whistling arrowhead to Temujin. So it was a cool arrow.
Yeah.
And Temujin was like, that's a sick arrow, man, and decided to give him back a cypress-tipped, knob-headed arrow. And then they're like, Onda a second time. Let's go. Double Onda, you and me. And then here's the quote that they say to each other. This is the way, he's like, if we are to treat each other as the elders would have us do it, this is the way in which Onda love each other. People who are Onda are as if they have one life without any separation and are lifelong saviors to each other. So we are essentially the same person.
Wow.
It's very, very reminiscent of Genesis, right? The two become one flesh. That's kind of what it means.
Yeah.
So then they do it again. Temujin gives him a gold belt he got from the merchant, and I think this is their like final renewing recently. And gave him a yellow Baron mare with a cool black spine, also stole from the merchant. Jamuka had helped him in his campaign against the merchant to retrieve his wife Bort when she had gotten kidnapped. They won. They got a bunch of stuff from it, so they're just trading some of the stuff. Jamuka, in turn, gives him a gold belt, which he also got from the merchant, and then gave him his very own white horse. So they reestablish their Onda, and it's rad. They feast together. They sleep under one quilt together. They are like, we are joined. They love each other for a year and a half of the next year. And then as they're moving camp, Jamuka says something weird. They're traveling along. And he goes, hey, let us have our camp up against the high mountains and wranglers for our horses. We'll have huts enough. Let us set our camp down against the swirling brook, and shepherds for our sheep and lambs will share a bite. Does that mean anything to you guys?
Sounds awesome, right? Like, is there something wrong with that?
Apparently, yes, because Genghis is like, I don't know what this means. So he kind of hangs back and he goes to his mom and his wife and he says, he said this thing. What does that mean? And Bort, standing next to Genghis Khan's mom, says, Jamuka Onda is said to be a person who easily gets tired of things. Now the time has come that he has become tired of us. Oh. The speech that Jamuka Onda said to us just now is one that is aimed straight at us. Let us not pitch camp. As we have begun moving this way, let us make a clean break and move through the night. So it sounded like Jamuka was like, let's all pitch camp together and
have a nice time.
Apparently that is not what it meant. Okay. And they are not friends anymore. So Jamuka is sick of them. They're spliskies. Wow. Okay.
Dang.
After the horse and after the arrowheads and everything? Like,
I know. It's hard to believe. Hard to believe. After sleeping under one quilt together.
One quilt, I know.
Okay. And then this is the time for the first coronation. Okay. So he is eventually, he's becoming Genghis Khan right now. It's happening. Yep. So a whole ton of folks come. There's a huge genealogy of the gathering peoples in the book, and I'm not going to waste time with it. But they get together, and this old man named Corsi gives Temujin a vision. It's a very strange vision about a cow who comes and breaks his horns on Jamuka's cart and then walks around mooing at Jamuka and looking at him sideways, and then follows Genghis Khan and says, let Temujin become master of the kingdom. I am delivering the kingdom to him, all the while mooing and making a lot of noise.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I need to interpret that one too hard.
No, I don't know about the whole jamming your horns up on some other guy's cart, but the vocals were very clear. Yep. The mooing and then the I'm giving this to this. And then the guy says, all right, I've made this clear to you. What are you going to give me in return for giving you this vision? And Temujin says, hey man, I'll make you a ruler of a whole Tumen, which is about 10,000 people.
Wow.
And the guy goes, and I quote, where is the joy in being a commander of a Tumen? When I have become a commander of a Tumen, let me have free rights to choose from among the kingdom's beauties and lovely daughters, and make me a man with 30 women.
Dang.
And listen with attention to whatever else I have to say to your face. And that's what he asked for.
Wow. Is that what he gets? Is that?
Yeah, I think so. It makes you wonder if a guy that is going to be coronated ever comes to you and you have to give him a vision, why not just give him it's all yours, buddy.
Right.
And if it succeeds, what are you going to give me? Because if he doesn't succeed, you're probably going to be all right.
Yeah.
Right? And if he does succeed, well, hey, you got a whole Tumen and whatever else you want. So I don't know.
Yeah, if your vision is you're going to be stuck in 10 years of a bureaucratic nightmare. It's going to be what a crappy vision is this?
I don't want that. Yeah.
You give him a good one.
You give him I
stuff.
saw a cow strutting the world and it moved that you're dope.
What do I get for this? If this happens,
what could it mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds like not a bad business model. Is just to go around, be a soothsayer or be an oracle and just go around to various coronations and just say visions.
Say good stuff.
And see what you can get.
And say remember me in your success. Yeah.
It's a great idea.
I mean, again, the worst that is going to happen is they get deposed and you're probably not in any trouble.
And what's going to happen? They're going to be like, oh man, that guy told a crappy vision. And I'll be like, no, he just interpreted it wrong.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Easy. New career path for all of us, I think.
Good, yeah.
Okay, so a whole bunch of people break off from Jamuka's camp and come over to Chingis's camp. So his people group grows. 3 guys, Alton, Katar, and Sassy Becky. It's spelled
You must have made that one up. Sorry, one more time.
It's S-E-C-E. So C, I think it's probably Cease or CC.
But Sassy.
I like Sassy. And then B-E-K-I, Becky.
That's Sassy Becky. Never mind, I take it back. I'm sorry.
So good old Sassy Becky.
That's
These
great.
3 guys are like, okay, we're going to make you ruler.
Yep.
And if we rebel, kill us. And they tell him a little poem. Fair of face, goodly girls, palace tents, pavilions, foreign folks, chubby-cheeked lovely ladies, and geldings good of rump, trotting we will take for you. Like, this is all the stuff we're going to get for you. When hunting wily game, bushes we will beat for you. When hunting wild beasts, cram them close, we will for you. When corralling game by crags, press them till they pant, we will for you. If day of drawing swords has come and commands of yours are countered, strip from us our household stock, separate sweet ladies from our side, and cast aside our coal-black heads on brown and soiled beds.
Dang.
If hours of peace are here and harmony of yours is harmed, bear away our bondsmen, wrest from us our wife and child, and dump our bodies in a desert place.
Wow.
And so they profess those oaths, basically.
Quite the poem.
Yeah, we will serve you, and if we don't, then
Kill
you
us.
can kill us.
We should have that be the thing that our kids memorize for their poetry recitations.
Just swear fealty to us forever. So right here is when they name him Genghis Khan.
Okay.
Those guys get together. They say, well, you are going to be our ruler. You are going to be our Khan, and we give you the name Genghis. So he's now Genghis Khan.
You said it was like elected or it requires everyone to give him this title. Like he does not just take this for himself.
Yeah, Khan is an elected position,
Yep.
and it's not hereditary. I mean, often it would be if your dad was Khan and you were awesome, you would probably get Khan too. I think that's what happened with Genghis. But you can be deposed if you are not strong enough and you're being a wuss. Your people will get rid of you.
Yep.
But it isn't entirely savage. There's a lot of respect for rulers. We'll get to that later with the story of Fatty.
Okay.
And I'm also not making that name up.
Okay.
Fatty and Sassy Becky.
Take your word.
Yeah. Okay, so he becomes Genghis Khan. A few other guys make promises to serve him or die. One of them is Bo Orsu, if you might remember him from last episode. He was the best bud who helped go get some horses back with Genghis Khan.
the rich
Remember
guy.
the rich
The
kid
rich
working
family,
in the field.
yeah.
So he was out there and he's like, you look like you're in trouble. And he just helped from the goodness of his heart
Right.
because he was awesome.
Yeah.
That's Bo Orsu. He's still around.
Cool.
Still doing okay. And then Jelm.
Okay.
Another guy, Jelm.
Awesome.
Again, lots of people could just sort of pop into the story with very little background. So these guys will later become two of his war dogs, which we'll get to probably not this episode, but next episode.
Great title.
That's cool.
He's
title.
got 4 war dogs.
Oh,
I call them
man.
the war dogs because of the way Jamuka will later explain them to another king.
Okay.
Like they're just totally savage. Okay, so Borisu and Jelm. I think Jelm is the one who becomes a war dog. I don't think Borisu does. Okay. Genghis sends 2 guys to Jamuka, just to as envoys. And Jamuka says, tell this to Altan and Kosar, the envoys. Altan and Kosar, how did you 2 separate Temujin Anda and me with a sting in the stomach and goad in the gut? When my Anda and I were still together, why didn't you make Temujin Anda ruler without separating us then? What are you thinking now that you have thought to make him ruler? Altan and Kosar, you 2, ease Anda's soul by living up to your words and serve him well. So he seems a little hacked that he didn't rise to power when they were together, but I don't know. It seems like his fault for growing tired and walking away. He
Right.
didn't have to walk away.
Yeah, you didn't have to say your weird cryptic have our sheep raised together thing.
Yeah, that again, it sounds like a normal thing.
I know that still feels like the wife was driving a wedge between this. Maybe she wasn't too
I kind of agree. I wonder if Bort was
just feeling like
tired of Jamuka and maybe their friendship was too close and she was a little feeling neglected or something. I don't know.
yeah,
Could
I
be.
don't know. Maybe she wanted that arrowhead.
The cool blunt one.
Yeah, the one
that he
that
gave away?
whistles.
Okay, so now we have battles with Jamuka. It has devolved pretty quickly into non-friendship.
But I guess if Jamuka didn't mean that, he would have said something by now. Be like, "Hey, man, what's the heck? Why'd you leave me?"
I mean,
Or would it have been so insulting that Jamuka's like, "Why? I can't believe Genghis would do this to me. We were Ondas."
I don't know. There's a lot of assumptions that happen, and a lot of it is just based on. It seems like there are kind of unwritten rules that if you don't follow them, everyone assumes a certain thing. Like if you just move your camp, they're like, "Oh, I guess we're not friends anymore," automatically,
Yeah.
because we're not traveling together. But it happens all the time, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
accidental, and people just fly off the handle and make all these crazy.
You have to think that they all know that. Like there's like context we're missing, but that everyone in the story understands.
Maybe, but even in today's story, we're going to have a situation where they kind of make assumptions, and the assumptions are all wrong, and both sides are making assumptions about what the other side is doing, and it's just kind of silliness.
But if we ate lunch together every day, and then one day you came and I was eating lunch at our table, and you came and you sat down, and I got up and I left, we're not Ondas.
we're not Ondas anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I sat next to you and you say, "Hey, let's sit at that table tomorrow and we'll have our lunch together," and I asked my girlfriend and she was like, Yeah, he hates you now. And I was like, oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I guess we have to sit someplace else. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah, I hear you.
It's confusing. Anyway, so there's a battle with Jamuka. Jamuka hears that his younger cousin has been killed, and he gathers together 13 different people groups and forms up 3 Tumans, 30,000 people, and rides against, which, okay. So I looked up Tumen on Google, and I'm wondering if the numbers are wrong, because later Genghis does a tally of his people, and it tallies somewhere around 2,300. So I might have that number wrong, just for our listeners.
2,300 people or 2,300 Tumen?
2,300 people.
Oh.
I think it's just 2,300 people.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if the numbers are a little bit wrong.
Okay.
Anyway, he rides with 3 Tumans against Genghis Khan. And Genghis Khan rides against him back with 3 Tumans, and Genghis loses.
Oh, dang, homie.
I know. It's one of the only times we see him really lose a battle.
Jamuka.
Jamuka lets him escape and decides that he is going to punish the princes that helped Genghis, and he boils them in cauldrons.
Wow.
And then he also cut off the head of one of the guys from the Negus, one of the people groups with Genghis, and dragged his head by his horse's tail. Which it's all just super heavy metal.
Dang, that's intense.
And then they decide
It's like the bad guy in the movie.
Yeah, Jamuka. Okay, so he's like the bad guy in the movie, but he's also a little bit like Loki from that series of movies that you don't watch, the Marvel films. So he's kind of good, kind of bad, jumps around. Did you
Really? He's like Loki from Marvel. Did you get that, listener?
This is incredible.
Do you feel that cultural relevance? Look at that modern tie-in.
AJ, I'm so sorry. You still feel good? You still doing okay?
No, okay. I feel you. I could hear his eyes roll. Like it was palpable. I think his chair shifted.
Did you ever watch that cartoon Spider-Man movie, Graham?
No, I haven't watched it.
You still haven't watched Across the Spider-Verse?
No, I haven't watched Across the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Either one, right?
Either one.
Yeah.
I mean, watch the first one better. I
first,
think it's a nearly perfect film.
Yeah. Isn't that right, Graham?
Jeez Louise.
Okay, so moving on. And apparently, even after losing to Jamuka, like a few more groups kind of break off from Jamuka after this thing. They're like, all right, see you later, buddy. And they just go off to Genghis.
Because they weren't cool with the fight?
I guess. There's a whole lot of back and forth. Although the people groups are so fragmented that no one ever really knows who's on whose side, I think.
Gotcha.
And so they decide to have a feast. And hijinks will ensue. So this is a bit of a longer section.
Awesome.
I'm just going to read it to you because it's silly. So that feast was overseen by our side by Belgute, who is a brother of Genghis, who stood holding Genghis Khan's geldings.
If you were a Frenchman, that's a great name for somebody to have your feast.
Belgute.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it means good taste.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then on the Yorkin side, because they were feasting with the Yorkins, Bori the Brawny oversaw the feast.
Oh, yeah.
A Katagan man was seized as a thief for stealing a tether from our hitching post, which are apparently important things. Like, you don't mess with the hitching post. Bori the Brawny came to that person's defense. For his whole life, when Belgute would wrestle, he would tuck his sleeve under his right arm and go around bare-shouldered. And Bori the Brawny slashed open with a sword his shoulder that had been bare naked like that. Even though Belgute had been slashed at like that, he went about letting the blood flow without making anything of it and without paying it any heed. Genghis Khan was sitting in the shade and saw it from inside the feast. He came out and said, "How did this happen to us?" When he said that, Belgute said, "The wound is hardly anything. I worry we might create a stink with those brothers on my behalf. I'm not in pain. I'm getting over it." When we have just been getting on nicely with those brothers, big brother, stop, hold on for a few seconds. And so he's just trying to hold on to Genghis. Genghis Khan, without heeding Belgute's words of dissuasion, ripped some branches from the trees clean off and pulled the plungers out of the leather sacks, and they started beating each other up. The Yorkin lost, and Lady Corrigan and Lady Coercin were grabbed and taken away. So those guys are going to cut my buddy's shoulder, I'm going to take their ladies. But then the next moment they said, let's be reconciled. And while envoys were being sent back and forth saying, hand back Lady Corrigan and Lady Coercin and let's be reconciled, they learned the news. That since Meujin and Seultu and the rest had not obeyed their treaty, the Golden Khan of the Chinese had sent Onging Chenjiang to marshal the troops without delay. Onging Chenjiang was advancing, driving Meujin, Seultu, and the other Tatars up the Ols with their herds and provisions. So as they're feasting...
They get bad news.
Weirdly, it might be good news.
Oh, okay.
So So Genghis Khan's brother gets his shoulder cut because the guy stole something from the post, and he said, "Don't do that." And then Bori the Brawny came to defense and cut up his shoulder, and he's like, "I don't want to fight with these guys. I'm just bleed. It's just a flesh wound." And Genghis Khan flips out and beats him up with some plungers, and it's this like it's just nonsense. And then all of a sudden they're like, "Okay, the Chinese are moving, and we have this big thing happening that we kind of have to deal with." So Genghis decides to join Onging Chenjiang against the Tatars. So remember, this is the Golden Khan. He's the guy that's in charge of the Chinese. He's got loads and loads of money, and they maintain that border and basically let Mongolia kind of do whatever it wants to. And occasionally, to maintain order, they go in there and like stomp some people out, and then they come back. They really don't necessarily want to go that much further. They're not trying to take land, but they don't want anyone in Mongolia to get enough power to challenge the Golden Khan. I think that's kind of the political program.
Sure.
Well, Genghis is like, great, I can make friends with the Golden Khan. Let's do this. Let's mess the Tatars up. He says, from days of old, the Tatars have been hateful folk who murdered the grandfathers and fathers. In this opportunity, let us join in on this attack. So they asked the Yorkin, the boys, the hijinks from the Feast boys, the guys that had their ladies stolen and had cut up his brother's shoulder. He asked them to help. And the Yorkin, and then like as he goes, he decides to stop and wait for the Yorkin to show up. And he waits for 6 days, and the Yorkin do not show. And he can't wait anymore. The Chenjiang is going against the Tatars, and he's like, I can't wait for these guys. So he leaves, and they go against the Tatars, and they succeed. So Genghis Khan wins, and one of his buddies gets the title Ong Khan from helping, two oral from the Chariot. I don't think it's the same as the coat guy from the last episode. There's a few Ong Khans, I think. I think there's 2. So that's not cool that the Yorkin didn't come to help. They were feasting, everything was chill, they had given back their ladies.
Yep.
And the Yorkin still didn't show. And so he is a little bit hacked. The Yorkin, even after being late, decided to go in and loot Genghis's base camp, and they killed 10 of his guys.
Whoa.
So they were supposed to show up and help. They didn't show up and help, and instead they
stole stuff.
Stole a whole bunch of stuff from 50 of his dead and killed 10 guys.
Wow.
So he was livid. They also slapped his steward once.
What?
They slashed Belgaday's shoulder, which we know about. And he's like, we gave them back their ladies. They bailed on the campaign. Let's murder those fools. And so does that make sense to you guys? I mean, that would make sense to me.
I mean,
yes, it's a little aggressive.
It's a little, it's a little over the top to go and murder them for that. But like,
if you slash open the shoulder of the king's brother, you got it coming.
It's not going to go well,
right? And if you promise to help and then instead you mess them up, you know what I mean? That's not cool.
So is that what happens? They go after him?
Yeah, they decide to go up against. They do. 2 guys, Sassy Becky and Tayusu, were captured. Genghis recalls their vow from the coronation. He's like, you guys, Sassy Becky, you promised to help always. Do you remember the words you said?
Oh, they're going to get abandoned in the desert.
Yes, he did murder them.
Wow.
Sassy Becky.
Sassy Becky dies.
Rough.
And then he meets a guy named Scissors. I wish I was making these names up. Spelled exactly the
like
same.
Scissors?
The
Like
guy
that?
is
Wow.
named
Okay.
Scissors.
Okay.
And he's really cool with it. And he's like, here's my 2 kids.
Yeah.
And he says to serve them well. So here's what Scissors says. I give them on grounds that they guard your golden threshold. If they separate from your golden threshold, separate them from their sweet life and cast them away.
Wow.
I offer them with an obligation that they elevate the felt of your entryway. So they lift the door.
Right.
If they ever from your service extricate themselves, kick them in the kidneys and cast them away. That last little bit is the only reason I included this quote, because I think kick them in the kidneys is really funny.
And these guys are vicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloodthirsty.
Yeah. They go pretty hard. Okay. And then we have a wrestling match between Bori and Belgute. So remember Bori and Belgute? Bori was the sword slasher.
Belgute is the guy who got his
shoulder.
shoulder slashed. So is his shoulder all better?
I would assume so. Yeah, he seems okay. So, and this is weird. It just happens between the stuff with Scissors and another battle with Jamuka. There's no context for it. It just says this is the thing that happened. So I'm going to read you the section of the book. It just says the wrestling match of Bori and Belgute.
Okay.
One day, Genghis Khan said, let's have Bori the Brawny and Belgute wrestle.
Awesome.
Bori the Brawny was one of the Yorkin. Before, Bori the Brawny would seize Belgute with a hand on one side and push with his other foot and make him fall, pushing him down without letting him move. Bori the Brawny was the brawniest in the kingdom. And then Belgute and Bori the Brawny were made to wrestle. Bori the Brawny, a man who could not be beaten, took a fall for him.
Huh.
Belgute, unable to pin him, held him by the shoulder and got on to his butt. Belgute looked back, and just as he looked at Genghis Khan, the Khan bit his lower lip. Belgute understood and moved up on his back, pulled the two sides of his collar in a firm crosswise grip, put his knee on his spine until it cracked.
Whoa.
Dang.
What?
Bori the he's a Toril. Toril?
The ones they just killed a bunch of? Was he one of those? Yeah.
The ones that they all just killed.
Yeah.
Toril, was that the right name? Yorkin. He was a Yorkin.
Yeah.
That's the right name. Okay, so he was a Yorkin, and then it looked like Genghis Khan kind of gave the signal to off the guy.
Right.
And it seemed like the guy was taking a fall anyway, and it just happened.
Bori was trying to lose. That's what you mean
I
by
think Bori
taking-
was trying to lose, was giving him a little, giving him some fun.
And they got killed.
And got killed. And he says stuff. Bori the Brawny knew his spine was broken and said, I would not have been beaten by Belgute. I was afraid of the Khan and took the fall and hesitated and lost my life. Just then, he died. Having snapped his spine asunder, Belgute dragged him off and threw him away.
Dang, these guys are rough.
Yeah, don't love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Second battle with Jamuka. Okay, so we've done one Jamuka battle. We're on to battle number 2.
Cool.
It's in the year of the chicken. It's one of the first times I actually get a year.
Yeah.
So this is year 1201. So do you guys know anything that was happening around 1201? Like what was going on in the world around this time?
Going from your
I'm not looking for a
experience, what do you-
specific
Oh,
thing.
I mean,
Just to give the listeners like a frame of reference.
have you had a crusade yet? I don't think so.
We're coming up on the Renaissance.
We got Byzantine Empire going on.
Yeah, I guess 150 years before the Renaissance. We've got sort of, I don't know, it's the sort of Middle Ages in Europe, so the Age of Kings.
Yeah, kings, armor, swords, knights and ladies.
You'd have the sort of, what is it? It's the like right at the beginning of the Plantagenet.
I was going to say, Lackland is king.
Yeah, is he?
Yeah, that's
Stephen?
what this says.
No, not Stephen.
King John.
King John.
Lackland.
Okay, so we have had crusades.
So King Richard the Lionheart is off doing his thing.
Yeah, King Richard Lionheart's off doing his thing.
Right.
He's either captured or he's in the Holy Land or something.
So as this is happening, Robin Hood's out.
Theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically.
If you want to, yeah.
If you believe Robin Hood was there at the time. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's what's kind of happening in 1201. Jamuka gets elevated to Gur Khan. So he is also a Khan. So there's Genghis, there's Jamuka. So now they're almost kind of rivals, I think.
Okay.
He decides to ride against Genghis and Ung, and they fight. And during their fight, two guys on Jamuka's side know weatherstone magic. So they do the weather magic. I think I
Did we
mentioned
talk
this
about
in
this last
episode
time?
1.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, where you have these stones and you throw them up and you try to manipulate the weather.
Yeah. Doesn't work.
But, and I quote, it reversed and the magic fell on themselves. It's like a plane.
they did it wrong, right?
Magic.
They got
Uno
countered.
Uno reverse card. So, so they do the weather magic and it Uno reverses and they fall into ditches and say, heaven is not pleased with us and scatter. And so they're out. And then Jamuka, having all these people having run off, he decides like, all right, I'll just plunder them. So he just takes all of their stuff. And these are the people who elevated him to Khan. He decides to take all their gear and take off. Okay. So now we move on to the battle with the Tasiut. You probably don't remember that, or sorry, Tayisiut. It's the group of people who, if you remember, way back when Temujin was really little, they abandoned his mother.
Sure.
Right after her husband died.
Yeah.
And they tried to ride off, and when an old man went to stop them, they stabbed the old man and killed him. And then she had to sort of fend for herself with a whole bunch of women and children, and then eventually gathered enough people to have some wagons again.
That's right.
But the Tayisiut are the people who abandoned her. So we don't have a great history with them. He decides to go up against these people, and it is a brutal, long fight all day. And eventually night falls, and everyone just kind of decides to go to sleep. So they lean against each other. Everyone is sort of doing the back-to-back sleeping, you know? And Genghis Khan is wounded in the jugular.
Whoa.
I don't know if they're doctors. Maybe they thought the jugular was something different, just anywhere in the neck or something, because a few people get wounded in the jugular, and all seem to survive.
Oh,
and my
wow.
understanding is that a jugular vein...
Pretty
It's
serious.
pretty big deal.
It's a pretty big deal. And I don't, maybe they had better surgery, but from what I'm about to describe, I don't think they did.
Okay.
So I'm going to read you this section about Genghis Khan being wounded in the jugular. In that battle, Genghis Khan had been wounded in his jugular vein, and agitated that the blood could not be staunched, he let the sun go down. I'm glad he let it
He
go
allowed
down.
it. Yeah.
Right there, where they were leaning on each other, Jelm stained his mouth with blood as he sucked and sucked the clotted blood. Jelm sat guarding him half the night without trusting any other person. And half the night through, he would swallow the clotted blood until his mouth was full, and then spit it out. And when the night was passing, Genghis Khan revived and said, "The blood is finally clotted. I'm thirsty." Then Jelm stripped his hat, boots, coat, and clothes off completely, and wearing only his breeches, he ran in all but naked among the enemy who stood there propped up against each other. He climbed onto the wagon of the people who had set up a wagon fort beyond, and looking for any kind of isuk, he failed to find it. In their flight, they had put their mares out to pasture without milking them. Having failed to find isuk, he came back carrying a large covered pitcher of kefir on his back. The whole time, no one spied him come or go.
The naked guy running with a giant jug on his back?
Seriously.
With blood-stained mouth, he must have looked like a crazed vampire.
Yeah, seriously.
And I did look that up, why he was sucking on it, and partially he was afraid that it had been a poisoned arrow, and so it was important not to let the blood clot because it may have poisoned Temujin.
These guys are bonkers.
Yeah.
So, that's not it. The whole time, no one spied him come or go. Was he not protected by heaven? Having brought the kefir in a covered pitcher, Jelm went right back to find water before returning. He mixed it with the kefir and made the Khan drink it. So 2 trips. 2 trips. Thrice the Khan drank a mouthful and then said, "My mind's eye is clearing up." And he sat up. The day broke and it became bright. And when he looked around where he was sitting, where Jelm had sucked the clotted blood and spat it out and become muddy all over, Genghis Khan saw it and said, "What's this all about? Why not spit it further away?" Like, there's blood all over here. Then Jelm said, "Since you were so restless, I was afraid that if I wandered off, you would be worried. And in a rush, I swallowed what I swallowed and spat out what I spat out, agitated myself how much must have gone into my own belly." Genghis Khan said again, "When I was lying down in a state like this, how could you have run around among them half naked? If you'd been caught, wouldn't you have betrayed the state I was in?" Jelm said, "My idea going in half naked was that if somehow I was seized, I would say, 'They realized that I wanted to go over to you, sirs, and seized me to kill me. They stripped off all my clothes, and with only my pants left on me, I stealthily gave them the slip, and even so came rushing off to you, sirs, and they would think it true, and give me clothes and take care of me.'
Foolproof.
But once I'd mounted a horse in that very moment as they were watching, wouldn't I get back here? With that idea in mind and thinking to relieve the Khan's nagging thirst, I went there with my eyes open and this idea in mind."
Dude's had a lot of blood.
Seriously, yeah.
So, I mean, it worked.
It did work.
Yeah.
Naked dude running around
And
with
is
his bloody
Khan
mouth.
like, oh, the story checks out?
Oh, yeah, Khan, I think the response was, "That was very wise. Like, it was a good plan. I think it was a good plan." And he honors him well for sucking his blood and running around half naked among the
I love
enemy.
where it's like, well, why'd you spit it like right next to me? It's like, I mean, geez.
Literally just saved his life. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. Okay. He also finds Sorgan Sira, and Sorgan Sira, you may remember from last episode, when he was captured by the Tayisi-Ut, he had a guy that told him to hide in the river. You
Yes.
remember this guy? And was like, "Stay here,
Yes.
I'll lead them away." And then he did it like 3 times, and then eventually he hid Genghis Khan in a wool wagon and helped get the big thing off his neck. So
Yes.
this guy's great. He helps a lot.
Yep.
And he was, of course, with the Tayisi-Ut. And Jeeb, another guy who would later become a war dog, he finds those 2 guys in the battle. And Genghis asks why Sorgan Sira had stayed with them so long, and Sorgan was like, "Well, if I came too early, they'd probably like take all my stuff." And Genghis is like, "That checks out. That makes sense. You don't want to lose all your stuff." And then about Jeeb, I'll read this part. Again, Genghis Khan spoke. "When we are fighting at Colton and pushing each other back and forth and reforming our ranks, an arrow came from high up on the ridge. It snapped the atlas bone in the neck of my white-mouthed, straw-colored armored charger. Who fired it from on top of the mountain?" To those words, Jeeb said, "I fired it from the top of the mountain. If I receive death from the Khan, I will stay behind, fouling a piece of ground the size of a palm. If I should be favored in front of the Khan, I will charge for him, driving through the deep water, smashing through the smooth stone, whatever place he says to get to, wherever he says to attack, there I will charge for him, breaking apart the blue boulder, beating to bits the black boulder." Genghis Khan said, "Someone who has been an enemy hides his killing, his hostility, and himself, and denies his words in fear. But as for this one, instead he does not deny his killing and his hostility. Instead he openly admits it. He is one fit to befriend. He was named Jirgo Adai here and now because he shot the atlas bone in the neck of my white-mouthed, straw-yellowed armored charger. I name him Jeeb, and shall make him a weapon."
Okay.
Which, that's the word for weapon. Is
So
Jeeb.
Jeeb's like, so Genghis Khan's like, who shot my horse? And the guy's like, I did it.
And he's
You can either kill me here and I can stay in the ground, or
I can fight for you. And he's like, dope. and he makes him a buddy.
Our Jeeb.
And that is the way in which Jeeb came from the Tees-Ute and was befriended. Okay, I promised the tale of Fatty.
Okay.
So we are on to the tale of Fatty. So there was a Tees-Ute commander named Fatty Kiriltuk, and he was going into the woods. No further information is given about his designs on the woods, but he was going into the woods, and there were some dudes that thought he was like well hated. I think they were probably Tees-Ute. They seized Fatty, who could not ride, and made him ride on their wagon. As they rode, Fatty's kinsmen kind of got the gist of what was going on, so they all kind of ride up, thinking to snatch him. And one of the guys takes him, straddles Fatty so he can't get up, pulls his knife, holds it to his throat, and basically says, like, look, if they catch up to this, I'm going to die, right? And I've laid hands on my good commander, because this guy was a leader, and so he says, and so if I let you free, I'm definitely going to die. Either way I die, so if I die, I'm going to take a pillow with me to die on. And this is a common phrase they say, if I'm going to die, I'm going to take a pillow, which basically means I'm taking someone out with me to lie on when I'm dead.
Got it.
So the guy hollers out and he's like, whoa, don't kill me. So he sends off his family. He's like, you guys don't come any closer. You got to get back. Like, what are you going to do with my dead body when they slit my throat? Like, please leave. So they do. And then the guys that take him are heading towards Genghis Khan to give this guy over. But they kind of sit in council with themselves and they're like, look, Genghis Khan might not like this, right? We've laid hands on our ruler. He doesn't usually look kindly on people that have betrayed their ruler. I mean, remember Jeeb, right?
That's right. Well, he looked kindly on Jeeb.
He looked kindly on Jeeb because Jeeb had dealt honestly. Like he was, I'm a soldier. I shot your horse. I did what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to hide it. And he's like, oh, great, you're an honest person. But if you go against your commander and like, it's not okay to take your Khan unawares. Sure. And so these guys had done that. They're like, I don't think we should do this. Like we should let him go. So they free Fatty, and then they go up to Khan and he's like, I heard you guys had Fatty, and they're like, we did, but we let him go because we don't think you like it when people go against their commanders. And he's like, that's good. I would have killed you and your whole family. So, nice job.
And he doesn't kill them. Like
nope. And they're okay because they let him go.
Well, there you go.
And that's the story of...
You picked the right option.
Yeah,
picked the right option.
I did not see that coming.
Okay, how are we doing on time? We're doing okay. This might be might end a little bit short today, but that's fine. All right, so Ong Khan. So I told you this is the story of two Ondas. This is the second Onda of Genghis's, Ong Khan. And Ong Khan was originally an Onda of his dad. Oh. And so Genghis is like, that makes sense. I can just sort of like, you love my dad, you can love me, we can be best friends. They become Onda, and they decide to annihilate the Tatars and make a whole rule that no one can stop for booty until the battle's over. There's one guy who does, and they kill him. Right, so you can't stop and loot. We have to do the killing first and the looting later. That's the deal.
Sure.
And this is the kind of thing they would also say in ancient Greece when they were going in. There's a couple spots in the Iliad where they say, don't stop with the armor, you guys. We actually have to do the killing first, and then you can get armor later. So they decide to annihilate the Tatars, and it works. They succeed, and they do a thing called they hold a council. And they're like, what do we do with these Tatar people? And they decide to linchpin them. Do you guys know what that is? I had to look it up today.
No,
doesn't sound great.
It's not great. It's the pin that goes into the cart, like the cartwheel.
Oh, gosh.
That sounds worse than it is.
Oh, okay.
So what they do is they take every Tatar person. It's about 3 foot high is how high that pin stands. Those wheels get pretty big. And they take you, and if you are taller than the linchpin, they kill you. And if you are shorter than the linchpin, you're a child, they let you live, right? Because you're not dangerous. So they decide to linchpin all these people. And Belgute, the guy who got his shoulder slashed, he's a little loose-lipped, and somebody asks him, like, hey, what'd you guys decide? And he says, we're going to linchpin the Tatars. It gets out, and the Tatar people all decide to carry knives on them at all times. And so it turns out that linchpinning the Tatars, a tougher project than they originally thought it was going to be. I mean, they still do it. It just takes a lot longer, and it's way more dangerous, and a lot more people die.
Right.
And so they decide to kick Belgute out of council. They're like, you don't get to come in here anymore, man. You're bad at keeping secrets. So they put him in charge of people who are fighting and quarreling and thieving while they're in council. Yeah. They're like, you handle the outside, Belgute, and we'll handle the inside.
That's not so bad, right? Like, he still has a job.
It could have been way worse.
Yeah,
I feel like he got off okay
easy.
with being loose-lipped.
Yes.
Okay. There's another short story about 2 sisters and a lover. So I think they were Tatars in the last battle. So there's this girl, Yisukin, who gets taken by Genghis Khan. She's cute. She's really good looking. But she's a little distraught. And she says, I'm having some troubles. And Genghis is like, girl, what is the deal? What's going on with you? And she says, well, I have a hot older sister. She is hotter than me. I tell you that right now. She's better spoken. She's way cuter. If you can find her, I just want to know she's alive. You can have her. I mean, she's got a boy, but, like whatever. And Genghis is like, sounds great. Hotter than you. I'm on board. Let's make this happen. So they go and they find Yasui, the girl. And they do find her. And as they find her boy kind of runs off into the weeds because he doesn't want to be killed. Like he bails. He gets out.
Right.
So they bring Yasui, and Yusuken had promised, if you actually find her and do this for me, then I will take second place, right? She can sit next to you. I will sit one down on the sofa. And Genghis is like, that sounds great. 2 ladies, not got no problem here. And one day he is kind of hanging out with them, and they're eating on either side of him. And they're like, I wonder what, something seems off. Something seems off here. So they say I think there was like 150 guys around, and they say, okay, you guys need to separate into your groups of 50. Like, you guys are an army. You guys know who's in your group. Get in your groups. And they get into all their groups, and there's one guy left over. And they're like,
whoa,
who are you? And he's like, I'm Yasui's guy.
He just snuck around?
Yeah, he's like, I
Aw.
thought you guys wouldn't notice me.
So he just
I thought
blended
there were
in the
so
crowd?
many people. Yeah, he's just hanging out in the crowd. He's like, I just wanted to be around. I missed her, and I thought I could blend in. And they're like, oh, and they execute him.
Oh,
Which is so sad.
that's so sad.
Like, why not? Why not just let him be in the army? That one seems kind of hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've gotten to estrangement. And this is not necessarily the estrangement with Jamuka. This is the estrangement with Onkan. So they've been friends. They've been friends for a pretty long time. And Jamuka, as Genghis and Onkan are rising against the Naiman, it's just battles all the time. So that keeps happening. Onkan decides to ride a little further on, and Genghis stays. So it's kind of nightfall. Onkan is like pursuing the Naiman or like fleeing a little. He's making tactical advances, and Genghis doesn't follow. He stays where he is. And Jamuka gets into Onkan's ear and says he must have stayed to surrender. He is going over to the Naiman. He's abandoning you. Genghis looks and sees Onkan continue on and assumes that he has been abandoned. And then Onkan loses to the Naiman. The Naiman actually plunder him. And eventually he asks for Genghis Khan to save him, and Genghis Khan does. He sends his 4 champions. His 4 champions save Onkan. And then they have kind of a chat, and Ong is like, yeah, you're great. I love you. Thank you for saving me. That's fantastic. You're a wonderful guy. Also, and I quote, my sole son is Sengam, which is like having no son at all. Sengam is not a shining example of a Mongol.
Poor Sengam.
And Onkan's brothers are all terrible. So he's like, look, I want you to be like my eldest son. Let's make this happen. So they make a pledge together. When we tackle teeming enemies, let us take them in a trap together. When we corral the cunning game, let us catch them in a ring together. Again, Genghis Khan and Onkan pledge to each other. If, in envy of us, a snake with teeth should try to provoke by trying words, we'll not be tempted. But talking in person, we will truly believe. Or if a snake with fangs should slander the other, by slanderous thoughts we will not be swindled. But speaking in person, we'll sincerely believe. Such words they pledged and lived together lovingly. Then Genghis Khan thought, over and above our love, let us double our love. And he makes a proposal. Let Sengam's little sister be engaged to Josie. And in exchange, we will give our Kowajin Becky to Sengam's son, Tasuga. So let's do this marriage thing. But Sengam, who thought very highly of himself, said,
Is that the dopey son?
Yeah, dopey kid. If our child goes to them, she will always be standing by the door and looking up towards the head of the yurt. If their child comes to us, she will sit at the head of the yurt while looking down at the door. Remember, if you're close to the door, you're low status.
Right.
So he thinks it's a bad deal. He thought highly of himself, spoke scornfully to us, and was not pleased to give us Kaur Becky. And with those words, Genghis Khan quietly lost all affection for Onkan and Lika Singam. So tried to do this marriage thing, and Sengam sours the deal because he's being a toot.
Being a toot kid.
Yeah. So Genghis doesn't really love these guys as much as he could have if Sengam had done the right, appropriate thing. And Jamuka knows this. Jamuka kind of gets, they've known each other a long time, so he kind of figures out what's going on with Genghis Khan, and he knows he lost all affection. So he convinces Sengam that Genghis is going to double cross them with the Naiman. He's not. That's ridiculous. Like, Genghis may have lost a little affection, but he's not going to go and double cross these guys for no reason, at least as far as I know. They all decide together to ambush Genghis Khan. Even though Onkan Like they're like, okay, this is a great plan. Let's run it by Onkan. Onkan says no.
Yeah.
He has never double crossed me. He's always there when he asks. He just saved me from our last battle with the Naiman. Like, I don't buy it. Let's not do this. This is a really bad idea. Genghis Khan is a great guy. We are Onda. Hard no. They talk about it. They still want to do it. And so they run it back past Onkan and maybe even once or twice more. And he finally says, look, you want to do this? You do this. It's on your head. Like, I think it's a bad idea. I'm just going to say it. But if you guys want to ambush him, like, you make that happen. So their idea is to ambush Genghis Khan as he comes in for the betrothal feast. So Sangam decides to agree to the wedding. He's
brutal.
like, okay, let's make this wedding happen. Come on back, right? It's a setup for just a flat ambush.
Right.
And as Genghis is heading on, he stops with a guy named Father Monglik, and Father Monglik is like, hey, didn't Sangam originally scorn this betrothal? Like, didn't he think this was a bad idea? Why the about face? Like, why the switch? It must be a plot, right? It sounds like he's saying one thing, but the reality is a different thing. And Genghis is like, I think you're right. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So Genghis is like, I'm not doing it. I'm gonna turn around. I'm not gonna go to this thing anymore. We'll send, just in case it's not a plot, we'll send 2 of our other guys, but I'm not going. So he sends these 2 other guys. Sangam figures out that the plot has been discovered. And as they plot that night, they're like, okay, since he knows we can't let him get back to his army.
Get married.
Like, he knows
Right.
we can't let him get back to his army because then we're screwed.
Right.
So we have to catch him as he's like traveling back. So they're plotting at night, and these 2 guys outside the tent overhear the plotting.
Wow.
And so they're like, we could tell Genghis Khan.
Right.
And, that would help out a lot. So they hop on their horses, they cook a quick meal, they jump on and they ride to Genghis, and they alert Genghis, and Genghis is like, holy smoke. So he flees. He gets out of Dodge.
Yeah.
But can you imagine, like, what was Onda is no longer Onda.
No
Like,
longer Onda.
They are not friends at all. Okay, and that brings us to the Battle of Kala
Nope. Nailed it. Nope.
Aljit Sands.
You got it.
Kala Aljit Sands.
Yep.
Jamuka gives some advice to Onkan, and Onkan tells Jamuka to marshal his army. So he's like, okay, so we're going to fight. That sounds great. We're going to fight with Genghis. I think your plot was good. You be in charge.
Right.
So he gives Jamuka the marching orders. And then Jamuka sends word secretly to Genghis Khan outlining their entire battle strategy. He's like, this Onkan is dope. I told him all these things. I've never really been able to fight you anyway. We were on to long ago. Like, let's be friends again. Here's all the stuff. And he says Onkan doesn't really have the moxie to pull all this off anyway. Genghis, knowing the battle plans, absolutely crushes them, right? Just crushes the whole army. And in the battle, Sangam is shot in the face with an arrow.
Okay.
And so that, I think, is where we are going to stop today, when the relationship between Onkan and Genghis has been sundered. How do you guys feel about Jamuka at this point?
I don't know how to feel about Jamuka. I mean, he was like the big bad, but now he's trying to be his friend again.
Yeah, he flip-flops. He flip-flops real hard. And he's the one that was kind of in the plot to get Genghis in the first place.
Yeah.
But now that he's actually in open warfare with Genghis, he's trying to be friends again. Like, he seems like he's just fair weather friend hardcore and is always looking for an angle to get one up on everybody. I don't trust him.
Yeah. I guess we don't know at this point where things end, right?
But
Yeah.
if you help Genghis mop up this like lesser group, you're making Genghis stronger. Yeah, what's in it for you? Maybe.
Are you trying to run this past your
I'm just thinking of Machiavelli.
your Machiavelli?
Yeah,
ranks?
because usually you would side with the weaker one against the stronger enemy. It seems like a bad idea for Jamuka, unless Jamuka is a real true believer in Genghis Khan.
Because if he sides with Genghis Khan, makes Genghis Khan so much bigger, and Jamuka obviously will end with nothing. But if you help the weaker enemy and you help them succeed, like, you're going to end up with a lot more. I don't know. You're right. It seems like a really bad idea. But remember, Jamuka kind of got his face stomped in and then had to plunder his own folks.
Yeah, these guys don't seem like the brain surgeons of the community, though. Like,
You mean Jamuka and Sangam?
well, just these Mongols. Like, they're just a bunch of bros killing each other and getting drunk and fighting, and it just seems like
kind of. Yeah, I mean that's about right, and it's weird because it even seems like
football
frat battle too.
yeah,
because
frat battle.
it's frat battle because the people groups flip flop their sides all the
Exactly.
time. He's like, oh, the Delta Pies, they didn't come to the party last week. We hate them now, and it's it's just such an emotional up and down.
It is, yes.
And the TCU, we killed all them, and we killed the Tatars. Yeah. Oh, TCU. So I don't know. I'm trying to frame this all as this, sweeping narrative of these Onda brothers, and it kind of is. Like, I think those are the big shining things: is Jamuka and his dealings with Genghis Khan and Ong Khan, and we will finish that saga next time I do an episode, and then move into the his new regime, and then moving into international battles. He will eventually go into foreign territory. We're not there yet, but we're on the threshold of the unification of Mongolia. So it's about to happen. Awesome. And then next time I will finish unifying Mongolia and then invade some new places. It's cool.
Rock and roll. Well, so
what'd you guys think? Is this so? Okay.
Okay.
My problem with these episodes is that it's just so many tiny fragmented tales. Is it still like fun listening to? Should I keep on doing these?
Stories rule. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Fun little tales.
Like you guys are
just
cool.
told me we're going to unify the Mongols. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like all the Plantagenet stuff is too. Just
When do we fight the Hungarians?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
It's fun. Why not?
I've gotten to the unification of Mongolia, and I'm just entering onto the new regime. So letting him rule for a little while.
Do you enjoy the stuff? Do you enjoy these episodes?
I enjoy.
That's resounding.
Yeah. No. Seriously.
No, I think. So
like
there
you
are
really
bits
feel
of it that I don't enjoy the trying to figure out who all of these random people groups are, and then all of these random people that come with the people groups. It's just so many names and peoples that it's really hard to keep track of. I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can for the audience. That's hard. The little stories I
They're
love.
Fun. They're great.
I love those little stories, like the wrestling match between Bori and then the weird shoulder slash, and he's like, "It's cool. I'm getting over it," and he freaks out. I love that. I love the tale of Yasuki and Yusue. I think that was the two girls, Yasukin and Yusui. Those
that dude
and the love dude that just tried to blend in to be close. Oh, poor guy.
Poor guy.
Like that was a really good story. And then I love the guy that shot the arrow from the upper hill and hit the horse and was like, "Yeah, I did that. You murder me, fine, or you could let me be awesome for you." And he's like, "Great, let's make that happen." And Fatty the commander, like I love all those tiny stories. It's just I'm wondering if it's not as fun because it's not well strung together. Like they seem like just little episodes.
I think it's super interesting. I'm enjoying it. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Well, this has been Classical Stuff You Should Know with the guys. If you are a sassy Becky and want to email us, you can email us at theguys@classicalstuff.net. You can find us on Patreon, where we will have an in-between episode where apparently I'm going to showcase my stupidity. What else are we going to we have in-between episodes. We've got a monthly AMA. We have now a new advice column where you can ask the Oracle of the Helios Acolytes of Love to help you with your life.
It's true.
And you can
if you're new to the podcast, the Helios Acolytes of Love, just so you're not thinking it's totally weird, is an imaginary cult we made up during our cult episode. I don't know if that disarms
not weird
it.
at all.
Yeah. So we, as a joke, made this the highest.
Clear that up for you.
The highest tier in our. It's a whole thing.
Have we cleared
But we're
anything
not.
Anyway,
back to you, Graham.
We have access to the Oracle of the Helios of the Acolyte of Love. And you can find us on Twitter or X, Mr. X. And without any further ado, that's us.
Okay, cool.
Goodbye.
Bye.